was too big to be called a figure. Massive, thick, heavy, and far too rough. Indeed, it was a heap of raw polystone.
For the last 12 months, I felt as though I'd been lost at sea. Endless saving, eternal waiting. The struggle was, indeed, very real. Fortunately now, it's all over. The Black Swordsman comes.
So, Cam, what did you get for your birthday?
I got a box.
Isn't it lovely?
If there's a pachinko machine in here, I'm pissed off. Yeah, it's gonna take me out. Oh, it's got a brace in it. Look at this. This is some heavy duty bigger stuff. Wait, am I gonna put him together?
Yeah, he's like a prize figure, isn't he?
But I did not pay 150,000 yen to have to put him together. Look, this is what the harness is for.
Right.
Just yank the fucker out. Use my little mini dragon slayer.
Sound of the underground.
Oh, holy shit. He's so much bigger than I imagined. He's so big. He's massive.
In this world, is the destiny of mankind controlled by some transcendental entity or law? Is it like the hand of God hovering above? At least it is true that man has no control, even over his own will.
I think it's safe to say that I had no control over my own will when this guy went up for pre-order last February. And here we are, over 12 months and £1,000 later, where I am now faced with the eternal struggler, the Beast of Darkness, the Black Swordsman himself, Guts. Sculpted in 1/6 scale by Tsuyoshi Hamasaki and Katsura Urano, painted by Hiroyuki Hirose, and then brought to us in a limited run of 300 pieces by Max Factory as part of their wonderful hobby selection, Guts is a lot more than just a big, expensive figure. He is a sculpted onslaught. Just looking at him is a tumultuous, visceral experience that will assault your eyes, test your mettle, and leave you screaming in reverie like a fanatical cultist. Well, that's what it did to me anyway, and in this video, I'm going to tell you why. The very first thing, which is rather difficult to capture on film, is the sheer size of this beast. When I said 1/6 scale, I meant it. This is 750mm of pure, unadulterated rage from the bottom of the base to the tip of the Dragon Slayer. He's not that far off reaching my waist, and just look at him when compared to his own Figma. He absolutely dwarfs the thing. In fact, all of the other figures that I own now look minuscule in comparison. So with the most obvious thing out of the way, let's talk about his composition. Besides being formed of darkness, blood and vengeance, he has been crafted from polystone. Guts is the second figure of the wonderful hobby selection to be made of this material, with the first being the Colossus Titan at the line's inception, which was released in slightly larger numbers early last year. So why is that a big deal, you may ask? Well, polystone is really just a fancy name for high-density polyethylene, which is similar in property to resin, but of a much higher quality. Compared to PVC, which makes up the vast majority of mass-produced figures, polystone is more dense, rigid, and resistant to the elements. It allows for cleaner edges and a hell of a lot more detail, which, when combined with Guts' size, adds up to a jaw-dropping display from any distance. It also makes for one heavy figure, and accounts for a large portion of the price. We'll look at the details individually in just a moment, but one thing I will also mention is that polystone is more fragile than its counterparts, on account of its rigidity. Max Factory have tried to make up for this by giving him a little wiggle room on the base, but nevertheless I've already heard some horror stories of figures being broken in transit, despite the ridiculous effort they go to in order to package them as securely as possible. Bearing that in mind, I feel as though I got off extremely lucky, as if our meeting was fated. He comes out of the box in 4 parts: base and legs, head, torso and cape, cannon arm, and flesh arm with the Dragon Slayer. The assembly for the most part is very simple, aided by strong magnets, and is only a little fiddly in the middle when hooking the harness onto his belt. At first, I was rather unrealistically expecting for it to not require assembly at all. But it leaves no evidence once complete, and, in hindsight, I'm glad that it did, as it further reduced the chance of breaking in the post. Not to mention it was a rather fun experience, and forced me to get right up in Guts' business and have a proper look around.
Step 1. Assemble.
The entirety of it.
So heavy.
Is that a fucking magnet I spy?
Yeah, it is.
How do they work? He's got like blood on the floor and...
I've only seen half of the figure.
I'd be alright with just that.
Guts has gone a bit too far. He's cut this demon in half and then he's cut himself in half as well.
Which chunk have we got now?
We've got this chunk. It feels really weird to the touch.
Like baked clay.
Baked clay. He's been in the kiln a bit too long. Wobbly on there.
Is he?
Oh, and then you do his little... You have to like hook him in. Come on, you bugger. Oh. Have I done it? No. Ah, there we go. Right, got one.
Man, I think the ones at the back are already in.
They sort of are, yeah. I assume it's just to give it some give.
Yeah, because with how heavy it is, if it wasn't, then it would just sort of... It'll make it a lot easier to break, I suppose.
The magnets are so strong. It's like when...
You look terrified every time you touch it.
I am. The friggin' Dragon Slayer, ladies and gentlemen. Holy Christ.
Oh my god.
You could just fucking wield that.
Holy Christ.
So, with all that said, let's get up close and personal, shall we? This is the face of a man who has seen some shit, and is really angry about it. Staring forwards with a burning gaze, teeth clenched like he's about to start screaming at the next apostle to stand in his way. With an expression like this, it's easy to see the care that has been taken to capture every detail in his face. You can practically see the muscles in his mouth, pulling against his cheeks. When you combine that with the folds of his scrunched up skin, and the individually sculpted and shaded teeth, including that sick canine action the man is known for, you have one mean-faced mamma jamma. You need look no further than his surprisingly elfin ears to understand the level of craftsmanship that we're dealing with here. And of course, who could forget the brand of sacrifice, cursing all those stricken to certain doom. We see it clearly etched into the back of his neck, bleeding, as it draws the horrors of the interstice towards him. Slithering down to his torso, and I can safely say that his clothing and equipment are easily the best parts of this figure when it comes down to sheer, insane levels of detail. Starting with his iconic layered pauldrons spattered with blood, and carrying on to the studded and sewn leather, the binding and hooks that keep his armour in place, and finally topping it off with wondrous knives galore. I almost want to try and put it all on myself, but even at 1/6 scale it'd probably still be too big for me. His bag on the side is probably my favourite piece of equipment of the lot, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if inside of it there was a tiny, fully sculpted puck clinging to Betchy the Bayolet. Unfortunately, as you begin to move around his back, the other pieces of kit that Guts is lugging around start to become obscured by his cape, which is annoyingly the most disappointing part of this figure. When you consider the lengths that have been taken to assure almost realistic levels of detail everywhere else, the cape kinda just looks like a big lump of plastic once it leaves Guts' shoulders, which is something I think even some subtle texturing could have at least helped with. This problem is magnified when you get to the bottom where, rather than looking tattered through wear and tear, it just looks as though it was cut that way. Even though the billowing, flowing motion it's making is spot on and really dramatic, these problems make it so I don't want to display him at any angle that would properly show that off. It looks fine from a distance, but I can't help feeling a little let down here. The cape hides a couple of items that you can only really pick up on close inspection, one of which being Guts' repeater crossbow. I had trouble shooting pictures of it because of the awkward positioning, and this was the best that I could get. It's a shame that this and his other little pouch are obscured as much as they are. The very fact that they're there and noticeable at all means a lot, and again rewards anyone who dares to take the time to examine the figure with a keen eye. Guts gained more armour on his legs as the story of Berserk progressed. However, we can notice that Hamasaki decided that less is more in this case, and I feel that this was the correct choice. We still get smatterings of his segmented armour plating on his hips, knees and feet as we work down to his boots, but we also get more of that incredible leather effect on the reinforcements of his trousers, which overall gives more variance in texture and colour. You can only do so much with black and brown, but I feel the colours were explored to the greatest lengths possible here. Let's jump back up to the arms, starting with what is easily my favourite aspect of Guts' design post-Eclipse, the cannon arm. Rickert's masterpiece of impossible technology that just works because it's badass looks absolutely fantastic. You can see the segmentation of his metal fingers and even the bolts that hold them on their hinges, and the bloodstains make me almost believe that it's not been long since the hand folded down to reveal the visible barrel in order to blow apart some poor sap of an apostle. When I look at this arm, it reminds me of how satisfying that is to experience, no matter what the medium. Boom. Across to his other arm, and I'm sure this is the moment that a lot of you have been waiting for, wrapped up, just as bloodstained, and gripping onto the Dragon Slayer with the determination of 100 men, the arm itself is rather unassuming. However, the sword does nothing short of steal the show. This is responsible for half of the figure's ridiculous 750mm height, and ridiculous is the only word I can think of to describe it. While the handle does look a little too big in my opinion, that doesn't stop this thing from being as impressive as it is. The texturing and overall feel are spot on, and what strikes me the most about this gargantuan guillotine is the blood. Not only does it capture the motion of the attack that it came from, but it also makes it look as though the sword is still moving. I'd better keep my distance. Now, it's been a harrowing journey thus far, I know, but don't worry. It's not far from being all over. Soon, we shall meet our grisly end, much like this poor apostle who lies slumped in tatters over the stone structure that makes up the base. Guts has been so kind as to liberate this demon's head from its shoulders, and from that we are treated to a wonderfully grotesque display of vibrant colour as its insides decorate the ground at Guts' feet. This thing is horrendous. A hulking, scaled beast with eyes that pierce your soul and chilling features reminiscent of when it was once human. No expense has been spared to create a creature from our nightmares, before casually slicing it to pieces. The horrible veiny detritus and glistening cross-section of this aberration's body would be enough to make the most cast iron of stomachs queasy. I can almost imagine it, slopping and squelching as the blood drains from its limp corpse and stains the stonework. It probably smells terrible too. Ugh. And to top everything off, around the back we have an engraved plaque sporting the full name and designation of this figure, while confirming that mine in particular is number 92 out of 300. It's strange. There's nothing quite like a unique identifier to give something the sense that it is truly yours. This is Guts, and there are 300 of him. But number 92? No, that one's mine. And that fills me with a queer sense of pride.
Oh my god. How beautiful he is. He's so good.
Do you like him?
Yeah, he's my baby. He's so big!
Very, very
like, I knew he was going to be big, but I didn't imagine him being this big. Number 92 of 300.
Not bad, not bad. Not number one though.
No number one.
But 92 is pretty good number 2.
What's your final thoughts, Cam?
Fucking great. I'm in love.
Was it worth? Hashtag worth.
Hashtag worth.
In conclusion, this is a dark, dirty, ugly, violent, disgusting monster of a figure. And it's perfect. Aside from my few niggling issues, in the grand scheme of things, those are really rather minuscule in comparison to the incredible achievement of craftsmanship that I was presented with on the evening I opened Guts' box. That gritty, unabashedly repugnant thing masterfully captures Guts in his element, his prime. And in doing that, it encapsulates everything that makes Berserk the powerhouse of storytelling that it is. The question that everyone has asked me since I got him is, was he worth the money I had to pay, or the time that I had to wait, or the effort that I had to make in order to haul him back to my flat? It's something that I thought about in fear as I waited for all that time, dreading that all of this would be for nothing, and I was just setting myself up to be massively disappointed. But now he's here, and he's mine. The answer is absolutely, invariably, and unquestionably yes.
Berserk is the series that really defined its genre, both in the realms of anime and manga. And similarly, I feel that the wonderful hobby selection Guts has set a precedent that's going to be difficult to match, let alone beat. And when I say that, I talk from both the perspective of the world of figures as a whole, and my own personal experiences as a collector and my feelings towards my collection. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Guts is the zenith of my figure collection. I've never worked so hard for a figure before in my life, nor will I do so again. I think that alone speaks volumes about what this figure is and what it represents. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to find my next challenge.